This video goes through multiplying and dividing directed numbers, and similarly to adding and subtracting, if you have the same signs then it's positive, and if you have different signs it's negative. But the key here is when adding and subtracting, those signs have to be next to each other. They're in the middle of the two terms. Here that's not the case. I've also put down the bottom even number of negatives, then you're going to get a positive. Odd number of negatives, you're going to get a negative. So that's something just to make it a bit easier. So when you're doing your evaluating, think about, is my answer positive or negative first? And I'll show you what I mean by that. So if I have -2 times -4, I have two negatives. So my answer is going to be positive. Okay, so I know my answer is positive. 2 times 4 is 8. You don't need to write the positive, it's implied. Next, 2 times -4, so I have one negative here. So I have one positive and a negative, so my answer is going to be negative. I have unlike signs. 2 times 4 is 8. Next, I have -2 times +4, so I have one negative, so my answer is going to be -8. Next, -4 divided by -2, so I have two negatives, so my answer is going to be positive. And you can even write that over to the side if you want. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 4 divided by -2, so I have one negative, so my answer is going to be negative. 4 divided by 2 is 2. -4 divided by 2, I have one negative, so my answer is going to be negative. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Let's look at some harder ones. -10 divided by -2. Again, that -2 doesn't have to be in brackets. It is just to highlight the -2, but it could also be shown like in the next question with that superscript for the negative. So don't get too caught up in how it's being presented. So I have two negatives, so my answer is positive. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So think about what is your answer, positive or negative, then evaluate. I have 5 times -6. So my answer, because I only have one negative, is going to be negative. 5 times 6 is 30. Next, -20 divided by 5. So I only have one negative, so my answer is going to be negative. 20 divided by 5 is 4. Next, 6 times -4. I have one negative, so my answer is going to be negative. 6 4s are 24. Now here's that trick where I said to you, even number of negatives is positive, odd number of negatives is going to be negative. And what I mean by that is they pair up. So those two negatives will pair up to make positive. Those two negatives pair up to make positive. Those two negatives pair up to be positive. So my answer when I have an even number of negatives, in this case I have 6 of them, it's going to be positive. 1 times 1 times 1 is 1. So my answer is 1. In the next one, those two negatives pair up, next two negatives pair up, and I'm left with a negative on the end. So my answer has to be negative. 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, etc. is -1. So because I had an odd number of negatives, my answer was negative because I have one left out. So looking at the next one, I have negative times a negative times a negative. So there's an odd number. There are 3 negatives, so my answer has to be negative. Now I can just look at the numbers. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. Next one, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 negatives, so my answer is going to be positive. 2 3s are 6. 6 times 4 is 24. 24 times 2 is 48. Next one, I have 1, 2, 3 negatives. I'll highlight that so you can see it. 1, 2, 3 negatives. So there's an odd number, so my answer is going to be negative. Then I can look at my numbers. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 times 4 is 48. 48 times 10 is 480. So the key here is I want you to think about what's your answer, positive or negative first, then you actually evaluate.